Jimmy Kimmel.
It's very good to see you. I heard you had to evacuate your home.
Yes. Like most people, I had to. I got lucky, the winds moved, but, the fire was coming and all that stuff. So I feel lucky.
Are you guys back in?
And I think everybody did a great job.
Sure you did.
Unlike the internet,
Yeah, right. I know. It's right.
Oh, my God.
Can you say that when it's not even done?
Exactly.
Why didn't you just fly a helicopter into the ocean and then just, I don't know, because there was 100-knot winds? You want to do that? You want to do that at night, you lunatic?
I don't know. Maybe we could put water in the fire hydrants. That's just
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. This is Tim Pool, Timcast IRL, and Tim Pool's going to have to comment on this. Everybody does who sees it. You might not do a live on it, but if you do record stuff, you're going to have to say something. One of the most outrageous attempts at humor that we've seen recently. I guess some people aren't getting the memo from 2024. Tim Pool's going to go in on Bill Burr. This hurts to see. I go back with Bill Burr as far as just watching him since In Living Color. I believe it was In Living Color, wasn't he? Oh no, it was Dave Chappelle's show. It was from, I think he might have done some In Living Color too, but I remember from Dave Chappelle's show. And he was funnier back then. We're talking about a decade ago, probably. He was funnier, he was better, he was witty, sharp, edgy. And now Bill Burr has to get ripped apart by Tim Pool. Let's go.
That's just an idea.
That seems like a good start.
Bill Burr, the man who admitted he doesn't actually read the news.
How are you?
This was definitely mismanaged.
That's a big word we're hearing now.
Mismanaged, like some idiot on the internet knows how to manage the worst fire in L.A. sitting there in his underwear.
I mean, I'm wearing a hoodie, but I would start with putting water in the fire hydrant.
Having a reservoirs filled, that's not that hard.
I would hire firefighters.
Sure.
These are not you may not be aware, but firefighters are people who you hire to fight the fires. I would have enough of them.
It's your classic example of, what an idiot. What do you pay attention to the news, you loser? So much cooler to just sit at home and do absolutely nothing and just run away when they tell me, or put on my diaper on my face when they tell me.
Yeah, it's crazy. Bill Burr has no problem criticizing Donald Trump at all. Later on, he criticized, you'll hear him here, criticizing the insurance companies, which I think he has a point on the insurance companies. But he's fine with criticizing the insurance company. He's fine with supporting Luigi. Wow. The guy who did the unliving of the CEO of one of the insurance companies. There was health. We're not talking about health here, but so he has no problem criticizing the CEO of a health company. He has no problem supporting somebody who unlived, allegedly, the CEO of a health company. He has no problem criticizing the insurance companies. He has no problem criticizing Donald Trump and MAGA. But when it comes to the leadership of LA, he seems a little skirmish.
You know what? Looking at the footage on the internet, I have determined that this here was mismanaged.
This is the thing.
This guy's so dumb.
First, I want to stress that when we looked up the ratings for Jimmy Kimmel, and I saw that his key demo ratings was 221,000. We're about just on the live show at 2.5 times that. I felt bad, punching down on a little guy like Jimmy Kimmel.
That's what they say. Don't punch down, right?
I sorry about that, Jimmy. I know you're an up-and-coming young star with your tiny little show. I'm actually gloating because I'm so happy to see the failures of these networks. Because what Bill Burr...
It's fair for Tim to bring that up because I still don't look at it that way, but 2024 kind of solidified it. I didn't believe it until 2024. That I knew Tim had more viewers, but I didn't know it would kind of really mean something in an election year, and it really did. Trump went on with Tim Pool. He didn't go on with a lot of the mainstream media outlets. And then why is that? It's because of ridiculous comments from Bill Burr. That's exactly why. Nobody watches Bill Burr and thinks, oh, this guy's based. Yeah, I should be watching more Jimmy Kimmel. Let's get back to Tim Pool, and he's going to really break this down.
Is doing, and he is a funny guy, okay?
When
he was on Joe Rogan talking about how people need to wear masks outside, he was still very funny because he made fun of rollerblading.
Knuckles dragging.
That was really good. That was really good. And it's for you, Brett.
Yeah.
He was like, He said it's like everybody rollerbladed and there was one homophobic joke and 100 million people threw their rollerblades in the ocean. That's actually really good. But he says in that, and then Joe, he says something like, Joe, you wouldn't do it. You don't get the body for it. Your knuckles would be dragging as you go. He's a funny guy. But the problem I have with this, he actually, everything he's saying is presented in a very comedic way, which makes you want to laugh. The problem is it's not a joke. He's not saying, here's a bit I've prepared. He's literally saying the internet is wrong. The fire was managed properly when it literally was not.
He's trying to do the George Carlin style. If you go back and listen to George Carlin, a lot of the stuff he said wasn't even jokes. He was just doing a YouTube segment, but the way he presented it and the truth is often very funny. It's the funniest thing. So Bill Burr was trying to, not Bill Barr. Bill Burr was on with Jimmy Kimmel. He was trying to do the same thing. I don't really have to tell a joke. I just have to tell kind of the truth. Well, number one, it wasn't true. Nobody had a take. There was nobody of any prominence that had a take about using the helicopters. And not at that moment. I can tell you, Bill Burr, what the take is, because I have the notes from we talked about this before with the fires. Just if you could listen to me for a second. There was a delayed response in the emergency response time. Tim's going to talk about the mayor, or I think Phil's going to bring it up. The mayor's out, and then the deputy mayor's out. You wait until you hear why the deputy mayor is out. But the delayed response time, there was a slow response time with only 5 out of 40 available fire trucks deployed initially. Insufficient evacuation plans. Residents reported confusion and lack of clear guidance. Remember, the cars piled up. They didn't know what to do, where to go. Lack of funding. This is an area where fires happen all the time. It's expected. It's predictable. Lack of funding. Budget cuts, including $17.5 million reduction. Mismanagement of forest and brush maintenance. Donald Trump talked about that in 2018 to Gavin Newsom's face. Poor coordination between state, county, and local and mayor. Inequities in resource distribution, meaning that certain areas that needed more didn't get more, and certain areas that didn't need as much didn't get it. And some of it came down to money. You look at the warning system for residents, inadequate. Controversies around the power company's role. Remember, they didn't turn up. We saw sparking. We were watching this unfold. We saw sparking power lines. We're like, well, number one, why are there power lines in these areas where we know there's going to be fires? Number two, why is the power still on? There was insufficient insurance support that Bill Burr is going to talk about. I agree with. Failure to implement lessons learned from past wildfires. Those are just some random notes from a guy in his basement. Bill, tell me where I'm wrong.
I mean, I think it's pretty clear that they didn't have water.
So water in the fire hydrant.
Yeah, like, how can you say, oh, it was managed properly? And if you want to specify that it's not the fault of, or the blame doesn't fall on the firefighters, absolutely, 100%. I'm right there with you. The blame does fall on the governor, and it falls on the
who blamed the firefighters? I haven't heard that.
The mayor of LA, the people that have decided to not pick up the deadfall in the forest and not essentially clean the forest so that way this stuff doesn't happen. Like, that is part of what their job is by being the stewards of California, right? Like, California is a desert. Everyone knows it. They don't get a lot of rain normally. Like, they're going to have forest fires. There's a lot of brush. Like, that stuff's gonna happen. And if you're elected to public office, it is your job to do whatever you can do to mitigate the risk and make sure that when there is forest fires, because they're going to happen to some degree, when there is a forest fire, that there's water in the fire hydrants. I'm
going to tell you what I think happened to Bill Burr. This is going to be Tim Pool on Timcast. This is Phil from All the Remains, kind of finishing off this segment.
And the fire chief said herself that they were understaffed and ill-equipped to handle it. So it's just like your own people from the inside are literally saying it.
And California has Silicon Valley. It has It has all of Hollywood, which granted Hollywood's not doing what it was doing 20 years ago, but they still make boatloads of money.
Yep.
The tax base in California is not a problem. They have the 5th biggest economy on earth. There is not a problem with money.
Nope.
It is not a problem with they can't find the money. You go and you ask Tim Cook, and Tim Cook will write a check and donate it and say, you know what? Okay, here, this will be a great write-off, and this will be a great PR stunt. Here's a bunch of money for the firefighters in LA or in Southern California. That's something that Apple would do just for chuckles. And you have multiple gigantic companies. There was a time where Apple had more cash than the federal government. That was a real thing. So it's not like the tax base isn't there. It's not like the money isn't there to do these things. It's mismanagement because you had single party rule, so nobody was pushing back on anyone else. Nobody said, hey,
an echo
you need
chamber.
to check that out. Yeah, exactly. It's an echo chamber, and nobody was.
And I don't think I had some criticism about this same criticism about Bill Burr on X, and I think people thought I was going with the Matt Walsh, and other people were saying that he doesn't criticize Democrats. No, that's not where I'm going. At the end, I'm going to tell you why, and I don't think he is criticizing Democrats. It's a pretty common, let me give you a hint. It's a pretty common syndrome that's going on.
Saying, look, we need to make sure these things are being taken
There's no
care of.
checks and balances. Ever.
None.
They build a light rail to nowhere.
I mean, that is a God. That's
Wait, they did?
well, yeah.
Not to change subject.
they got one section done.
It's just an example of just government mismanagement and their inability to actually hold checks and balances to show that the projects that are getting such heavy funding are actually being completed. Right?
I also, real quick, the president or the LA mayor is not the mayor of the Palisades, and there's other counties who are their mayors. No one's holding those folks accountable. We're just focusing on the LA mayor. So you know, each town, each area has their own mayor, so we should just call them all out.
Maybe the question
Yeah,
that
I'm going to
should have
stop
asked
it there. No, we don't need to get into the mayor. And the LA mayor is the main one. I know we can go to the county level, but LA is LA. It doesn't matter like how big or not. It's the money. It's the area. The LA mayor is the one that kind of bubbles this stuff up to Gavin Newsom. They're bigger than the county even. So I don't want to hear anything about that. And they're all Democrats regardless. So I don't no. So let me give you the first thing is the syndrome that I'm talking about Bill Burr has obviously is Trump derangement syndrome. It's not that he won't criticize Democrats, I don't think. I think it's that anything that Trump is, the impression is that the people criticizing online are the same ones that didn't want to take the Jabberwocky, same ones that pretty much still support Trump for whatever reason, which is irrelevant to this take. That's the impression. So that's why Bill Burr wanted to go against the internet. If Trump had been backing Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass, then he would have gone the opposite way. Bill Burr would have gone the opposite way. It's an anti-Trump thing. You see what's happening now with protests bubbling up. There was no protests over the last few years of pushing Biden or anything like that. Why are the protests coming? Because it's going against Trump. That's what it is. We saw protests against Palestine, and these protests here are the Trump inauguration one. I didn't see any pro-Palestine flags there. What you're seeing is anti-Trump sentiment. That for whatever reason, people on the left, I still don't understand it. Why someone like Francesca Fiorentini feels like she needs to criticize Trump supporters. Just they're the ones with power, I guess, now to them. Now, I understand Trump is basically establishment. I'm not for Trump, but you got to have a higher calling. And here's the end. What's going on with Bill Burr is just the same age-old story. It's women. His woman is a wokeist, and we saw her at that UFC event. Remember that? Where she gave the middle finger. Her name is Nia Renee Hill. She's an actress, writer, producer. This is his wife. She is very vocal on social, cultural issues, just your typical black iman, leading some to label her as woke. For example, in November 23, during a UFC 295 at Madison Square Garden. Wow, was that 23? Wow, that feels like much sooner. She was seen making a double middle finger gesture towards President Donald Trump, while Bill Burr was sitting there looking, I would say, I don't want to use the word that begins with C that Luke Beasley clowns people on the right for using. I'll just say Bill Burr looked like he was in the corner of a room and sitting in a chair watching while she had her two middle fingers up. I will just let you know that if my wife decided to do that, and I'm a prominent comedian, I would tell her, don't do that anymore. Don't ever do that again. Don't ever, what you're doing is usurping, you're overshadowing me. Don't do that. Not in public, not in politics. If I'm not doing my middle finger, I don't need to see you doing your middle finger. If you have a problem with that, then we have to reevaluate this relationship, because I wouldn't do that to you. Number one, sure as hell don't do that to me in public. You could see he was uncomfortable. And he was already turning before then, but then he was really turned out after that. Yeah, she said some other stuff about, interracial relationships and all kinds of stuff. She's a wokeist. Let's just say what it is. And sometimes it's not just young guys that get whipped, it's older guys that get whipped, and people like Bill Burr. He's just whipped. That's all it comes down to.
The next clip is ready below. Welcome to After Show Carnage.